Africa's parliament, its heavy wooden doors swinging open, MPs shuffling to their seats, papers rustling, and the speaker's gavel echoing across the chamber, began like any other day. The agenda read like 100 before it: debates, formalities, and the usual political theater the public had come to expect. But beneath the polished surface, something dangerous was brewing. The air felt heavier, conversations quieter, and behind the practiced smiles of the ANC's leadership, a storm had been gathering, one that was about to rip through the nation's most powerful room. In minutes, a routine parliamentary session morphed into pure political chaos, rules tested, tempers exploding, and history being rewritten in real time. At the center stood Deputy President Paul Mashatile, long seen as the heir apparent to the presidency, the shadow waiting for his moment to step into the light. But on this day, the light would burn instead of illuminate. The opposition struck first with pointed questions about corruption, state mismanagement, and abuse of power. Mashatile's jaw tightened, his replies sharp and dismissive, fuel to the fire. The chamber swelled with noise, MPs shouting over each other, the speaker's gavel pounding in vain. Then came the unthinkable: security was summoned. Before the stunned eyes of a nation, the deputy president, the second most powerful man in the republic, was seized, pulled from his seat, and dragged from parliament like a defiant protester. In that moment, the ANC's fractures were no longer whispered in corridors, they were laid bare for all to see. Cameras caught every second. Screens across the country lit up. The humiliation of Paul Mashatile became the headline no one could ignore. Never in the era of democracy had the nation seen such a breach of protocol, a political earthquake shaking the foundations of power itself. Outside, the story caught fire, social media lit up, newsrooms scrambled, and street corners buzzed with disbelief. Inside the ANC, the air was thick with panic and betrayal. For weeks, the party had been bleeding credibility under the weight of scandals, whispers of sabotage, and leaders turning on each other, but no one had predicted the crack would split open this day. When opposition benches launched their assault, the sparks became ablaze. One after another, MPs hurled accusations, looted state funds, abandoned responsibilities, corruption at the highest levels. At first, Mashatile stood his ground, but something in him snapped. He jabbed the air with his finger, dripping contempt as he mocked those demanding answers, brushing off accusations as cheap theater. The room turned hostile, murmurs into jeers, opposition voices rising with fury, the speaker's gavel cracking like gunshots in the chaos. Mashatile refused to yield. Then, the decisive moment, with his voice rising over the roar, ignoring every warning, his words came faster, sharper, cutting through the chamber. The speaker's patience shattered. The rare order was given, parliamentary protection services entered. Heavy boots echoed across the floor, the tension pulling tight like a noose. "Sir, you need to come with us," they said. Mashatile didn't move, didn't flinch, leaning back, gripping his chair, slicing the air with defiant gestures. Then the tension broke like glass. Hands gripped his arms, his chair scraped violently across the polished floor, and the deputy president was physically dragged from parliament. Gas erupted, some MPs leaping to their feet, others frozen in disbelief. The footage spread instantly, trending hashtags, multiplying memes, news bulletins rewritten in real time. The images were brutal: Mashatile's suit rumpled, his face twisted in fury, his authority stripped bare before millions. This was more than a political setback, it was a career implosion. For months, whispers of arrogance, reckless spending, and disconnection from ordinary South Africans had chipped away at his image. Now, the whispers had become a deafening roar. And perhaps the cruelest blow of all, President Cyril Ramaphosa, the man who should have been his strongest ally, sat motionless, offering no protest, no intervention, no words to calm the storm. His silence rang louder than any condemnation, leaving the nation to wonder, was this the moment Cyril Ramaphosa quietly cut his deputy loose, or had the two been locked in a political war all along, one now breaking into the open? As Paul Mashatile was dragged toward the chamber doors, all eyes turned to the man at the very top. Ramaphosa didn't rise. He didn't speak. He didn't even offer a glance that suggested surprise. No protest, no defense, no attempt to cool the fury in the room. And when the chaos subsided, there was no statement to the nation, no presidential effort to steady the ship. For millions watching, that silence was deafening. Some saw it as deliberate political distancing, the moment Ramaphosa severed ties with his deputy. Others whispered of a darker possibility, that this was just one battle in a ruthless internal war raging behind the ANC's closed doors for months, maybe years. Whatever the truth, the message was unmistakable. The ANC's leadership is not only fractured, it's frozen, a party once famed for unity now paralyzed, its top brass watching each other with suspicion inside Mashatile House. The fallout detonated instantly. Senior figures stormed in and out of offices, phones buzzing with urgent calls. Some demanded Mashatile's resignation before nightfall, others pushed for a purge of those who engineered his rise, and the phrase "emergency meeting" began circulating in hushed tones. Trusted allies began sizing each other up like rivals. Leadership challenges no longer whispers but open conversations. Outside the ANC's walls, the damage was visible to the nation and the world. The party's battered credibility wasn't just bruised, it was hemorrhaging in real time, every news outlet replaying the footage on a loop as international headlines questioned whether South Africa's ruling party could survive the crisis intact. The opposition pounced. DA leader John Steenhuisen called it a disgraceful day for our democracy, while EFF leader Julius Malema declared it proof that the ANC was no longer a liberation movement but a hollow, corrupt machine clinging to power by force, not principle. Smaller parties warned that the ANC had crossed from being the nation's backbone to being a threat to its stability. Each soundbite was a hammer blow, cutting deep into the party's public image at the worst possible time, elections looming, the ANC staggering in full view. Its divisions were no longer whispered, they were broadcast live, dissected by analysts, and replayed endlessly. In politics, a wounded giant doesn't get sympathy, it gets surrounded. Rivals could smell blood in the water and were circling fast. This was more than a messy day in Parliament, it was a rupture, a crack in the armor of a party that once seemed untouchable, and cracks have a way of spreading. What happened inside that chamber could ripple far beyond its walls, shifting alliances, energizing opposition bases, and rewriting South Africa's political map. The ANC's grip on power was no longer iron, it was trembling. And the drama was far from over. This wasn't the ending, it was the spark before the firestorm. From now on, every headline will carry more weight, every leaked call will be treated like evidence, and every hush meeting in smoke-filled back rooms could tip the balance of power. Political fault lines will deepen, friends will quietly become enemies, alliances will be forged in whispers, and betrayals will come with a smile. The question isn't whether the ANC will feel the aftershocks, it's how hard they will hit and whether the party can survive them. This may be remembered as the ANC's darkest chapter, the moment its unshakable walls began to crumble. And make no mistake, this is no longer just a South African story. From London to Washington, Brussels to Beijing, the world is watching every move, every slip, and every sign of weakness. History is being written right now, and when the next page turns, no one knows who will still be standing.